behind each bearing is a round. too much to cause the oil filter to go enter bypass mode, to open up. So then you're no longer filtering your oil, and guess what happens then? So there's all the time, you're in trouble. Too much oil pressure, and you could be doing that. So the first function, like I said, is the function of the oil film thickness, which varies with viscosity and therefore with temperature. Right. The second is the oil mass flow. Right. Mass flow is governed by the bearing journal diameters, the sum of the bearing clearance flow areas, times constant density, including the oil viscosity, right, times the square root oil density times oil pressure. Right. Increasing the bearing flow will allow a greater oil mass provided that viscosity, oil density, and pressure remain the same, but oil pressure does not remain the same under all operating conditions. So oil mass flow will change with pressure. Right. So the oil mass flow required by the engine is determined by the heat generated in the bearing journal interface. More heat requires more oil. To get that heat away. Lower speeds and lower Rs, obviously you need less oil. So it's really a function of heat, and obviously you're going to need to keep enough oil in there to keep that bearing surfaces separate, those metal surfaces apart, right? Oil mass flow is not constant static flow. It pulsates like a fuel injector nozzle, right? It's subject to density and viscosity, especially with aeration. So, I mean, unless you're going to measure that oil flow and, log your oil pressure and against the RPM and then check the heat versus relief valves, you're never really going to know. So don't get crazy. And I'm sure most people are like, that's not a big deal. But just be careful about slapping a Hellcat oil pump in at 5.7 is what I'm saying. You might be in trouble. Okay, let's talk about rebuilds after failures. Um, this can be a big issue, and we've seen lots of failures after a rebuild, even from a dealer, and obviously from these fly-by-night guys who are Hemi flippers or et cetera, et cetera. So the main thing is, like, if you've smashed a valve or broke a top of piston, there's a big chance that metal shards went flying into your intake manifold and are now stuck in the oil, caked in oil in that manifold, right? And you don't know it. You can shake it all you want, it's not going to shake. And I'm going to know it. Let's say the guy comes in and puts next thing you know, he runs some whatever through his engine cleaner, whatever, intake cleaner, whatever. What is the stuff they use to clean out the engine, and next thing you know, they free some of that up. And now it's on top of your head, trash in your head, your piston and your it smashes into the head and the piston. So you're done. Your engine's toast. So its manual says to replace them if you've had any kind of failure like that. I didn't do that. I took it down to the car wash, and I literally took a high pressure hose and nuked it. I stuck it full of like grease release stuff, or degreaser threw it in there and got rid of all the grease. That freed up actually what was metal, little bits of metal, and then I got all those out. So unless you know it's perfectly clean, go ahead and replace it. But just most people are not going to do that. I think it's going to be like $150, $200 for an intake. Be careful. Clean them out really, really good. I mean, go to town on them and make sure 100%. You can even get in there with a scope or something in there or something to make sure it's clean, right? 6.4 cam failures or the tighter tolerance engine with the cam failures. Be careful. Just usually they're going to refail. The main bearings are going to fail. The cam bearings after 5 to 10K because the tight tolerances. If you had a bad cam failure on a 6.4, the engine's being trashed by those metal shavings because of the tight tolerances. So if the dealer's going to do it, he's going to just do the cam on a 6.4. Make sure your warranty is for a long time. I would definitely not have a fly-by-night. That should be a dealer kind of only thing. Just take the engine out and just put new bearings in it. So rebuild the sucker. The 5.7s, they get off light. So the Eagles, you got to check you can check the oil control valve up on top of the block, and to get those off, you're supposed to take those only off at room temperature, and you kind of wiggle them back and forth, left and right, until you can get them to turn, and then you can break the seal. But if those things have metal shavings in them, the engine's pretty much toast per Chrysler. So be careful of that. If you don't see that, you're supposed to drop the oil pan on a 5.7 failure. Any failures, just drop the oil pan. You said check that oil control valve. Depends on how bad it is. You can tell really how much of the lobes are destroyed. And this goes back to typical knowledge that your shavings are going to be behind your bearings. So you have to think about getting everything nice and clean. Maybe when if you have a pan off, clean out the pickup tube, et cetera, et cetera. Clean the magnets out. So, it's still going to be in there. This kind of goes back to magnets on pre-eagled Hemis. I still think there's something to be said about the MDS solenoids on pre-eagles have magnets. So and I've seen more than a couple chunks of metal on a. I think I had a video where I showed it literally like a chunk of some kind of chunk of metal sitting on a on a MDS solenoid magnet that I would not have liked to see that go through my engine. So I don't know how it got there, but it's pretty hairy stuff. So anyways, it's just some other information. It's other than that, I mean, pistons, replace them, obviously. Don't try to use a smashed pistons or a smashed head, etc., etc. All that stuff should be known. Okay, these are the rebuild parts I suggest, right? So obviously, I'm not going to read them all. It's going to run you about, do a full rebuild, it's going to run about 1,000 to 1,500. I don't use engine tech stuff. I don't use bottom of the barrel stuff. You're going to have to add machine work, depending on how much you'd actually need. So I don't know what it is to buy a rebuild off of eBay for, what is it, $3,000 probably, for a short block. So it's maybe it's worth it to you. I wouldn't trust a rebuild off eBay. I don't know how good they would be, but maybe a more reputable builder. But those can run, 4,500, 5,500 probably, and up, depending on if it's a 6.4. Obviously, a 6.2 is going to be much more expensive. So anyways, there's just some parts I use. I think they're all there, but might be an oil control valve, maybe, I don't know about. So. Okay, whoops, I forgot to add this, but I added this in afterwards. Just some information on this is most like, I think the cams are most of the car cams. The trucks are going to be a little different, so I think those are, just be careful. I mean, I'd like to tie these into part, I'd like to actually tie these down to part numbers, but that's the general idea of what you're going to get. I remember the MDS is a little different than the non-MDS, just a couple. But fuel injectors, whatever, cylinder head casting numbers, these are if you're out there hunting. So. Okay, so when in doubt, get the manual if you can. This took me 10, 15 minutes to find some of these free ones. And they actually have full part listings too, which is, one note thing I want to say is, all this stuff, most of this information, minus the oil pump rant, I think can be found in the manuals. What should be replaced, what shouldn't be replaced. That's all. I think I've covered most of it. I forgot some stuff, but it's mostly there. So I use websites also. I'll go out to like my Mopar parts or something like, or Mopar parts online and check out compatibility. So if you got like an 05 or an 010, you're going out to the scrapyard and you're looking at an 08, you can kind of see if those parts fit. I use it for transmission control units. I use it for everything, right? I use it for PCMs. I use it for rods. What does that fit? Obviously. This manuals don't have a lot of 6.2 info, so that's a little harder to get. I'm sure there's a 6.2 manuals floating somewhere about SRT rebuilds. I'll have to look for one. These took me like 10 minutes to find the free ones. I pay $15. I think I bought the Escalade one for $15, maybe the Magnum for $15. But they aren't crazy. They're not. People want like $100, $200 on eBay. Screw that crap. You can sometimes find those guys $15 ones downloads on eBay. Show up. So, like I said, it's not hard to find this stuff, but it'll help a lot. Like I said, everything I've done is all backed up here by a manual. So I think this is, I might do something about torques. I don't know. There are some videos out there, I think, that just show the torques that you need on certain, just literally just cover the torque. So that's pretty good information. Just maybe look at one of those if you're interested in the torques. And there's obviously, how to time. I think I even did one on how to time one and how to do the heads. On I think it was pre-Eagle Hemi. I built 4 or 5 or 6 of these things now. Helped with various head replacements, one cam replacement. So obviously, people know the 10 to whatever 13 or 14 are the issues with the lifters, that old big stupidity. But anyways, I think this is, hopefully it's helpful. I tried not to make it too long if you're still here. But I don't make a lot of videos. Probably won't monetize this. I could, but I probably won't. So it is what it is, and enjoy. You can pick up a pre-Eagle Hemi. I get them for free practically. You can go out to pull apart, pick them up for $200, $250. Obviously, you want to make sure what's wrong with them before you pull them out of the cars. You know, I've been having my own nag 1 issues, but I think I still have two 5.7s to rebuild sitting around. I may get to those. I may pick up a new 6.4 to rebuild. But anyways, I'll be going back to LS. Actually, I've got a 600 horsepower LS3 I'm building, finishing up. So who knows if I'll get back to Hemi rebuilding. There is no more Hemi. I'll have to be called Darth Hurricane here pretty soon. So I'm really excited to kind of see this fairly insane 6-cylinder, the turbo. It's going to be interesting. Anyways, take it easy, enjoy, and hope this helps.